The rain hammered against the windows of the Rossi estate with the kind of violence that made even the bravest souls want to stay indoors. But desperation doesn't care about weather warnings, and neither did the 28-year-old woman standing at the servants' entrance, her natural curls plastered to her dark skin, water streaming down the elegant planes of her face that spoke of Ethiopian heritage mixed with Southern roots. Zara Washington had answered a discreet advertisement for a night nanny, one that promised triple the normal rate for absolute discretion and immediate availability. She needed the money. God, how she needed it. Her mother's cancer treatments had drained every penny of savings, maxed out every credit card, and left her working 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. This position, if she got it, could change everything. 1 child, the ad had said. 3-year-old, difficulty sleeping, requires gentle care and patience. What the ad hadn't mentioned was that the child belonged to Dante Rossi, or that the estate she now stood before was more fortress than home, with cameras tracking her every movement, and men in expensive suits watching from shadows that seemed to breathe with barely contained violence. "You're late?" the housekeeper said, her Italian accent thick with disapproval as she opened the door. Maria Benedetti was 62 years old, built like a linebacker despite her feminine name, with steel gray hair pulled back so severely it stretched the skin around her eyes. "The buses weren't running because of the storm," Zara explained, trying not to let her teeth chatter. "I had to walk the last 2 miles. Maria's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Come. Mr. Rossi doesn't like to be kept waiting. And the little one, she's having another bad night." The interior of the house was a study in contradictions. Priceless art adorned walls that had clearly seen violence. There were subtle patches where bullets had been expertly repaired. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over furniture that cost more than most people's homes, while security cameras tracked every angle with cold efficiency. This was a place where beauty and brutality had learned to coexist. Zara followed Maria through corridors that seemed to whisper secrets, past doors that were closed with the finality of tombs. The sound of a child crying grew louder with each step, not the angry wail of a tantrum, but the desperate, exhausted sob of a little soul who had forgotten what comfort felt like. 3 nannies in 2 weeks, Maria muttered, more to herself than to Zara. None of them could handle it. The child, she has nightmares. Terrible ones. She screams for her mama, but her mama. The older woman crossed herself. God rest her soul. How long has her mother been gone? 3 years. Since the little one was just a baby. Car accident, they say, though in this family. Maria trailed off, then shot Zara a sharp look. "You didn't hear that from me. In this house, we don't ask questions about the past. We don't talk about the deceased. And we especially don't sing." "Don't sing?" Zara found that odd. In her experience, children loved lullabies. Mr. Rossi's orders: no singing, no humming, no music in the nursery. It upsets him. Before Zara could ask why, Maria stopped at a door painted soft pink with tiny butterflies stenciled along the edges, a splash of innocence in this dark place. The crying was louder here, punctuated by hiccups and the occasional word. "Mama. Want Mama. Her name is Isabella," Maria said softly, "but she responds better to Bella. If you can calm her, if you can just get her to sleep through one night, the job is yours. Mr. Rossi will pay whatever you ask." Zara stepped into the nursery and her heart immediately broke. The room was beautiful. Every little girl's dream with its canopy bed, shelves of toys, and walls painted with fairy tale scenes. But in the center of all this luxury was a tiny figure curled into a ball, dark curls stuck to her tear-stained face, little fists clutching a worn stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. "Hello, Bella," Zara said softly, approaching slowly like she would a frightened animal. "My name is Zara. I heard you were having a tough night." The little girl looked up, and Zara's breath caught. Those eyes, deep brown with flecks of gold, framed by impossibly long lashes, held too much pain for someone so young. This child had seen loss, had felt the absence of someone essential, and it had left marks that no amount of money could heal. "Want Mama," Bella whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. "I know, sweetheart. I know." Zara sat on the floor, not too close, giving the child space. "Sometimes I want my mama too, and I'm a grown-up." "Your mama gone?" The question was asked with the kind of hope that only comes from not wanting to be alone in your pain. "No, but she's sick. Very sick," so I can't see her as much as I want to. It was more truth than Zara usually shared with strangers, but something about this broken little girl demanded honesty. Bella studied her for a long moment, then scooted slightly closer. Mama's in heaven. Daddy says she watches me, but I can't see her. Can't hear her songs anymore. Songs? The little girl nodded. Mama sang pretty songs. Special songs just for me. But Daddy says no more songs. Songs make him sad. Zara's heart ached for both father and daughter, trapped in their grief, unable to comfort each other. She held out her hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Bella took it. Her little fingers were cold, trembling slightly. What if, Zara said carefully, we make new songs? Quiet ones? Just for you and me? Songs that won't make anyone sad? You know songs? I know lots of songs. My grandmother taught them to me. She was from Ethiopia, far across the ocean, and she knew the most beautiful lullabies. Zara had been raised on those melodies, her grandmother's voice weaving magic in the darkness, chasing away nightmares with ancient rhythms and words that tasted like home. Bella crawled into her lap, and Zara felt the weight of trust settling over her like a blanket. This child was desperate for maternal comfort, for the softness that had been ripped away too soon. Without really thinking about it, Zara began to hum. It was an old tune, one her grandmother had learned from her grandmother, passed down through generations like a secret. The melody was simple but haunting, with rises and falls that mimicked the rhythm of a heartbeat, the sound of safety itself. Stella stellina, la notte si avvicina. The words came unbidden, surprising Zara. She didn't speak Italian, had never learned it, but somehow these words were buried in her memory alongside the Ethiopian lullabies. Where had she heard this? When? Bella went rigid in her arms. That's Mama's song. The special one. The secret one. Before Zara could respond, the door burst open with enough force to crack against the wall. Dante Rossi stood in the doorway, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. He was not what Zara had expected. She'd imagined someone older, harder, with the obvious markers of violence that men in his profession usually wore like badges of honor. But Dante was maybe 35, with the kind of devastating beauty that belonged in Renaissance paintings rather than crime family portraits. 6'3", built like someone who knew violence intimately but chose when to deploy it, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes the color of midnight storms. Those eyes were fixed on her now with an intensity that made her want to run, to apologize, to disappear entirely. His face had gone pale, his hands clenched into fists at his sides, and for a moment, Zara thought he might actually kill her right there in his daughter's nursery. Get out. His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of a death sentence. Daddy. No. Bella clutched at Zara. She knows Mama's song. She knows the special one. I said, get out. Each word was bitten off. Precise. Dangerous. Zara carefully set Bella down, despite the child's protests. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. That song. Dante stepped into the room, and Zara instinctively backed away. Where did you learn that song? I don't know. It just came to me. My grandmother used to sing lullabies. Maybe your grandmother was Italian? His voice was sharp enough to cut glass. No, Ethiopian. But she worked for an Italian family when she first came to America. Maybe she learned it there? It was a guess. A desperate attempt to explain the unexplainable. Dante moved closer, and Zara found herself backed against the wall. He was close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and dark, like wood smoke and whiskey. Close enough to see the pain etched into the lines. Around his eyes, the grief he wore like armor. That song, he said slowly, each word careful and deliberate, was written by my wife. She composed it herself, just for Isabella. No one else knew it. No one else ever heard it. She never wrote it down, never recorded it. It existed only between her and our daughter. The impossibility of the situation hung between them like a blade. Zara's mind raced, trying to find logical explanations for something that defied logic. Sometimes, she said carefully, melodies can be similar. Maybe it just sounds like, sing it again. What? The song, sing it again. It wasn't a request. Zara glanced at Bella, who was watching with wide, hopeful eyes. She took a breath and began again. the melody flowing from somewhere deep inside, somewhere she couldn't name or understand. Stella stellina, la notte si avvicina, la fiamma traballa, la mucca è nella stalla. Dante's face crumbled. For just a moment, the mask slipped, and she saw the raw, bleeding grief underneath. Then it was gone, replaced by something harder, more dangerous. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Who sent you? What game is this?" "No one sent me," I answered in ad. "I'm just a nursing student trying to pay for my mother's medical bills." "I don't know why I know that song. I swear I don't." He studied her for a long moment, and Zara had the unsettling feeling he was dissecting her, looking for lies the way a surgeon looks for tumors. "Daddy," Bella's small voice interrupted. "Please don't make her go. She makes the scared go away." Something shifted in Dante's expression at his daughter's words. The hardness didn't leave entirely, but it softened at the edges. "One night," he said finally. "You can stay one night. Tomorrow, we'll discuss this situation. Maria will show you where everything is." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "If you sing that song again, if you so much as hum it, I'll know. And trust me, Miss Washington, you don't want to see what happens when I'm truly angry." The door closed behind him with a soft click that somehow sounded more final than a slam. Bella immediately crawled back into Zara's lap. "Daddy's sad about Mama. He loved her so much." "Too much," Nana says. "When you love too much, it hurts too much when they go away." Out of the mouths of babes, Zara thought, holding the little girl close. She could feel Bella relaxing against her, the exhaustion of her crying jag finally catching up. "Will you stay?" Bella asked sleepily. "Even if Daddy's mean?" "We'll see, sweetheart. Let's just focus on tonight, okay?" As Bella drifted off to sleep, Zara found herself humming again. Not the Italian lullaby, but one of her grandmother's Ethiopian melodies. But even as the familiar notes filled the air, she could feel that other song lurking beneath the surface, waiting. How did she know it? The question haunted her as surely as any ghost. Maria returned an hour later, finding Bella fast asleep in Zara's arms. "Madonna," the older woman breathed. "She hasn't slept like that in weeks." "You have the touch, child." "Maria," Zara said quietly, not wanting to wake Bella. "Can you tell me about her mother?" The housekeeper's face shuddered. "I told you. We don't. Please. Just, what was her name?" Maria glanced at the door, then sighed. Juliana Rossi. She was like sunshine in this dark place. Mr. Dante, he orbited around her like she was the sun itself. When she died, she shook her head. He died too, in every way that matters. Now he's just going through the motions, running his business, trying to raise Isabella, but the light in him went out with her. How did she really die? Maria's lips pressed into a thin line. Car accident. That's all anyone needs to know. That's all anyone will ever say. Now come, let me show you the rest of the nursery. If you're staying, you need to know the routine. The night passed peacefully, Isabella sleeping deeply for the first time in weeks. Zara dozed in the chair beside the bed, but her dreams were strange, filled with melodies she shouldn't know and a woman's voice singing in Italian, teaching the words to someone who listened with desperate attention. She woke just before dawn to find Dante standing in the doorway, watching his daughter sleep. In the pale light, he looked younger, more vulnerable. The armor of his reputation, his dangerous presence, seemed to have been set aside for this quiet moment with his child. "She hasn't slept through the night since." He didn't finish the sentence. "Children process grief differently than adults," Zara said softly. "Sometimes they just need permission to feel safe again." "And you gave her that? A stranger?" "Sometimes strangers are easier. We don't carry the same pain, the same memories. We can offer comfort without the weight of shared loss." He turned to look at her then, really look at her, and Zara felt exposed under his scrutiny. "You're not what I expected when Maria hired a night nanny." "Someone older." "Definitely someone who couldn't." He stopped himself. "Couldn't what?" "Nothing. It doesn't matter." He moved into the room, careful not to wake Isabella, and sat on the edge of the bed. His hand hovered over his daughter's hair, not quite touching, as if he was afraid she might disappear. "She looks like her," he said quietly. "More every day. Sometimes it's like being haunted by the woman I loved, seeing her face in miniature. knowing I'll watch it grow and change and become more like Juliana with each passing year. That must be both a blessing and a curse. He looked at her sharply, but there was no judgment in her tone, only understanding. You speak like someone who knows loss, he observed. My father died when I was 15. Every time I look in the mirror, I see his eyes looking back. It's comforting and heartbreaking in equal measure. They sat in silence for a moment, two people bound by the understanding that love and loss were often the same currency. The song, Dante said suddenly. I need to know how you really know it. I wish I could explain it. It was just there, like muscle memory, but for something I've never done before. That's impossible. A lot of impossible things are true. Zara met his gaze steadily. I'm not here to hurt you or Isabella. I'm not part of some elaborate scheme. I'm just a woman who needs a job and somehow knows a song I shouldn't. My wife believed in fate, Dante said, his voice bitter. Said everything happened for a reason, that people came into our lives exactly when they were meant to. I told her that was romantic nonsense. And now she's dead, and a stranger is singing her private lullabies to our daughter. He stood abruptly. 1 week. You can have a trial period of 1 week. If Isabella continues to sleep, if there are no incidents, then we'll discuss a permanent arrangement. And the song? His jaw clenched. Don't sing it when I'm around. I can't hear it. Not with your voice. It's too much like. He left the sentence unfinished, but Zara understood. Somehow, her voice singing that song reminded him of his wife, another impossibility to add to the growing list. After he left, Zara carefully extracted herself from Isabella's grip and made her way to the bathroom. In the mirror, her reflection looked haunted. Her brown eyes, usually so steady and sure, were filled with questions she couldn't answer. As she splashed cold water on her face, a memory surfaced, not quite whole, more like an echo. A hospital room, machines beeping, a woman's hand in hers, squeezing weakly. Words whispered in Italian, a melody shared like a secret, like a gift, like a burden to be carried. When you find her, the voice in her memory said, sing her my song. Promise me you'll find my Bella Stella and sing her my song. But that was impossible. Zara had never been in a hospital room with an Italian woman, had never held a dying woman's hand, had never made promises about songs and daughters. Had she? The day passed in a blur. Isabella, having slept well, was a different child. Bright, curious, full of energy. She dragged Zara through the house, showing her favorite hiding spots, her collection of stuffed animals, the window where she watched for her father's car. This was Mama's room, Isabella said, stopping at a door that was firmly closed. Daddy keeps it locked. He goes in sometimes at night. I hear him crying. Zara's heart ached for the man who presented such a dangerous face to the world, but wept for his lost wife behind closed doors. We all grieve differently, she told Isabella. Your daddy's tears are just his love with nowhere to go. Nana says he should marry again. Says I need a mama. What do you think? Isabella considered this seriously. I think Daddy's heart is too full of Mama to fit anyone else. But maybe you could just be my Zara? Not a mama, but something good? I'd like that, Zara said, meaning it. The days fell into a rhythm. Zara would arrive as the sun set, take over from the exhausted day staff, and spend the night ensuring Isabella slept peacefully. And she did sleep, better than she had in years, according to Maria. The song was always there, just under the surface, but Zara was careful to only hum it when she was certain Dante wasn't around. He avoided her mostly, but she felt his presence like electricity in the air. Sometimes she'd catch him watching from doorways, his expression unreadable. Other times, she'd hear him conducting business, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made grown men tremble. The contradiction of him fascinated her. The loving father and the dangerous Don, the grieving widower and the ruthless businessman. It was on the 5th night that everything changed. Zara had just gotten Isabella to sleep when she heard the commotion, shouting, doors slamming, the sound of something breaking. She crept to the nursery door, cracking it open slightly. Dante stood in the hallway, blood dripping from a gash on his forehead, his white shirt torn and stained. 2 of his men flanked him. both looking worse for wear. "Find them," he was saying, his voice cold with rage. "Every last one of the Calabrese family. They want war? They'll have it." "Boss, you need a doctor," one of the men started. "I need them dead," Dante cut him off. "They came for me in my home, where my daughter sleeps. There's no forgiveness for that." He turned then and caught sight of Zara watching. For a moment their eyes locked, and she saw the predator beneath the polished surface, the killer that lurked under the grieving widower. "Take Isabella," he said. "Take her to the safe room. Now." Zara didn't argue. She scooped up the sleeping child and followed one of Dante's men to what looked like an ordinary closet, but opened into a reinforced panic room. It was set up like a small apartment. Beds, bathroom, kitchen, enough supplies to last weeks. "Stay here until someone comes for you," the man said. "No matter what you hear, don't come out." The door sealed with a hiss, and Zara was left in silence with Isabella, who miraculously hadn't woken. Hours passed. Zara could hear nothing from outside. The room completely soundproofed. Isabella woke once, confused by the strange surroundings, but Zara managed to soothe her back to sleep with soft songs, Ethiopian lullabies, never the Italian one. Finally, the door opened. Dante stood there, freshly showered, wearing clean clothes, but she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of whatever he'd done in the hours since she'd seen him last. "It's safe," he said simply. Zara carried Isabella back to the nursery, tucking her in as if nothing had happened. But when she turned to leave, Dante was blocking the doorway. "You didn't panic," he observed. "Most people would have. I grew up in Southside Chicago. Gunfire and gang wars aren't exactly foreign concepts. This is different. Is it? Violence is violence, whether it's sanctioned by tradition or born from desperation." He studied her. "You're not afraid of me." It wasn't a question, but Zara answered anyway. "Should I be?" "Yes," he said simply. "Everyone should be afraid of me. But you look at me like what? Like you see something worth saving." The honesty of it hung between them, raw and unexpected. "My grandmother used to say that everyone has two wolves inside them, one dark, one light. The one that wins is the one you feed. You've been feeding the dark wolf since your wife died, but the light one isn't dead. I see it when you look at Isabella. And when I look at you?" The question caught her off guard. There was something in his voice, a heat that hadn't been there before. "I should go," Zara said, suddenly aware of how small the doorway felt with him filling it. "Stay." The word was soft, almost pleading. Not like that. Just, I haven't talked to anyone about her. About Juliana. My men wouldn't understand. And my family, they want me to move on. But you know her song. It's like having a piece of her back, even if I can't bear to hear it." Against her better judgment, Zara stayed. They sat in the kitchen, sharing coffee that was too strong and silence that was surprisingly comfortable. "Tell me how you met her," Zara said eventually. Dante's smile was sad but genuine. "She was singing at a charity gala. My mother dragged me to it, said I needed to be seen at legitimate functions. I was 25, cocky, thought I owned the world. Then this woman walked onto the stage, opened her mouth, and I realized I'd never truly heard music before. She was a professional singer, opera-trained, but she preferred jazz. Said opera was all tragedy and death, but jazz was life itself. She was wearing this red dress." He trailed off, lost in the memory. "I sent her flowers every day for a month before she agreed to have dinner with me." "What made her say yes?" "I stopped sending expensive roses and sent daisies instead. She said it showed I was finally paying attention. She'd mentioned once that daisies were her favorite because they were honest flowers. No pretense. They talked until dawn, Dante sharing stories of his wife that he'd kept locked away for 3 years. How she'd made him chase her, refusing to be another conquest for the dangerous Dante Rossi. How she'd demanded he keep his business separate from their family life. How she'd sung Isabella to sleep every night, creating new songs just for her. "The night she died," he said, his voice rough. She was coming home from a recording session. She'd finally agreed to record some of her compositions, just for Isabella to have when she was older. The studio was across town, in neutral territory. She should have been safe, but she wasn't. The Calabrese family had put a hit on me. They saw her car, knew it was connected to me. They forced her off the road. His hands clenched around his coffee mug. She was alive when they found her. For 3 hours, she was alive, but I couldn't get to her. The hospital was in their territory. By the time I negotiated safe passage, she was gone. Dante, I'm so sorry. She died alone, he said, the words ripped from somewhere deep and wounded. The one person I swore to protect, to cherish. And she died alone in a hospital bed while I played politics with her killers. Without thinking, Zara reached across the table and took his hand. He stared at their joined hands like he'd forgotten what human comfort felt like. She wasn't alone, Zara said softly. Not really. Your love was with her. Isabella's love. That doesn't die just because miles separate you. You sound so certain. Love transcends distance, time, even death. The people we carry in our hearts are never truly gone. He turned her hand over, tracing the lines of her palm with one finger. My wife would have liked you. You have the same way of seeing the world, finding beauty in dark places. The touch was innocent, but it sent electricity through Zara's entire body. She pulled her hand back, confused by her reaction. I should go. It's morning. He nodded, but made no move to get up. Tomorrow's Isabella's birthday. Her 4th. Will you? Would you come? During the day, I mean. She'd like you to be there. Are you sure that's appropriate? Nothing about this is appropriate, he said with a bitter laugh. A stranger who knows my dead wife's songs, who calms my daughter's nightmares, who makes me want to. He stopped himself. Want to what? Feel again, he admitted. For 3 years, I've been dead inside, going through the motions. But when you're here, when I see you with Isabella, it's like remembering what it felt like to be alive. That's grief talking, Zara said gently. I'm not her. I could never be her. I know that. God, I know that. You're nothing like her physically. She was pale, Italian through and through, all fire and passion. He gestured helplessly. You're this calm presence, this steady warmth. You're Ethiopian coffee to her Italian espresso. Despite everything, Zara laughed. That might be the strangest compliment I've ever received. Will you come? To the party? Yes, she said, knowing it was probably a mistake. The birthday party was a grand affair, the kind that only the wealthy could throw for a 4-year-old. But beneath the decorations and presents, Zara could see the sadness. This was Isabella's first birthday that might actually be happy since her mother died. Zara arrived in the afternoon, wearing a simple sundress that made her feel underdressed among the designer clothes of Dante's family and associates. But Isabella's face when she saw her made any discomfort worth it. Zara! You came! The little girl launched herself into Zara's arms. Now it's a real party. The afternoon was magical. Isabella insisted Zara sit next to her for cake, help her open presents, be in every photo. Dante watched from across the room, his expression unreadable, but there was a softness there when he looked at his daughter's joy. As the sun began to set and guests started leaving, Isabella tugged on Zara's hand. Come see my special present from Daddy. She led Zara to a room she'd never been in before, a music room, with a beautiful grand piano and walls lined with instruments. This was Mama's room, Isabella said solemnly. Daddy had it locked, but he opened it for my birthday. He said I'm old enough to learn piano now, like Mama wanted. Zara's breath caught. The room still smelled faintly of perfume, something floral and expensive. Sheet music was scattered on the piano bench, handwritten notes in the margins. Will you play something? Isabella asked. I don't really play. Please? Zara sat at the piano, her fingers hovering over the keys. She'd had a few lessons as a child, nothing serious. But as her fingers touched the ivory, muscle memory that wasn't hers took over. The melody that flowed from the piano was complex, beautiful, and completely unknown to her conscious mind. It was the lullaby, but fuller, richer, with harmonies that spoke of longing and love and loss. That's Mama's special song, Isabella breathed. The whole one. She only played it once, for my first birthday. Daddy recorded it on his phone, but he can't watch it anymore. Zara's hands froze on the keys. This was impossible. Completely, utterly impossible. Play more, a voice said from the doorway. Dante stood there, his face a mask of pain and wonder. Play the rest. I don't. Yes, you do. Somehow, God knows how, but you do. Play it. Her fingers moved without her permission, completing the song with a flourish that was pure Juliana, according to the sharp intake of breath from Dante. Who are you? He demanded, crossing the room in 3 strides. What are you? I don't know, Zara whispered, tears streaming down her face. I don't understand any of this. Daddy, you're scaring her, Isabella protested, but Dante wasn't listening. He grabbed Zara's arms, pulling her to her feet. 3 people knew that full composition. Juliana, Isabella, and me. That's it. So either you're lying about who you are, or what? Or my wife sent you. The words sounded insane, but his eyes were desperate, searching hers for answers. That's not possible. None of this is possible. He was shaking now, his control finally cracking completely. You show up knowing her private song. You make my daughter smile again. You play her compositions like you wrote them yourself. What am I supposed to think? I think, a new voice said from the doorway, that you should both sit down. They turned to find Maria standing there, but she looked different, older, more fragile, carrying a weight she'd been hiding. Maria? Dante's voice was uncertain. There are things I never told you, Mr. Dante. Things about that last night. Things Juliana made me promise to keep secret until the right time. What things? Maria moved into the room, closing the door behind her. She knew she was going to die. Not the exact day, but she knew the Calabrese family was planning something. She'd overheard a phone call, seen things she shouldn't have. She knew her time was limited. She never told me. Dante's voice was broken. Because you would have gone to war immediately, and she wanted Isabella to have a father, not a memory. Maria turned to Zara. The night she died, she wasn't coming from a recording session. She was at Chicago General, in the emergency room. Zara's blood ran cold. No. Yes, child. You were there. October 15th, 3 years ago. You were a first-year nursing student, working your clinical rotation in the ER. The memory slammed into Zara with the force of a freight train. The busy ER. The woman brought in from a car accident. How she'd held her hand while they waited for the trauma team. She was conscious, Zara whispered. For almost an hour she was conscious. She kept asking about her daughter, her Stella Stellina. You stayed with her, Maria continued. When the other staff had to move on to other patients, you stayed. She asked me to sing. Said she needed to hear a lullaby one more time. But I didn't know any Italian songs, so I hummed one of my grandmother's Ethiopian melodies. And she taught you hers, Dante finished, his voice hollow. In those last moments, she taught you Isabella's song. She made me promise. Zara remembered now, the full weight of it crashing over her. If I ever met her Stella Stellina, I would sing her the song. But there were thousands of Isabellas in Chicago. I never thought. I tried to forget. It was too painful, too strange. But fate had other plans, Maria said softly. Juliana always said fate had a sense of humor. She must have known, somehow, that you would find your way here. Dante sank onto the piano bench, his head in his hands. All this time, I thought she died alone. But you were with her? I held her hand, Zara said, sitting beside him. I told her about Isabella, how loved she was, how she would never be forgotten. I promised her I would remember the song. What else? His voice was desperate. What else did she say? Zara closed her eyes, letting the buried memory surface completely. She said to tell you that love doesn't end with death, that you should find happiness again, not for yourself but for Isabella. She said the daisies were just the beginning, and you'd understand what that meant. Dante made a sound like he'd been punched. Our first dance was in a field of daisies. She dragged me out of the city for a picnic. Said I needed to remember there was a world beyond concrete and violence. We danced to no music, just the wind and her humming. She said it was the beginning of my transformation from monster to man. She wasn't afraid, Zara continued, the memories flowing freely now. At the end, she wasn't afraid. She said she'd had more love in her short life than most people get in a century. She said to tell you that you were her miracle, her proof that beautiful things could grow in dark soil. Dante broke then, truly broke, sobbing like she'd never seen a grown man sob. Without thinking, Zara pulled him into her arms, and he clung to her like she was a lifeline. Isabella crawled into both their laps, her little arms trying to encompass them both. "Mama sent you," Isabella said with the certainty only children possess. "She sent you to take care of us." "I don't know about that," Zara started. "I do," Dante said, pulling back to look at her. His eyes were red, but clearer than she'd ever seen them. 3 years of signs I've ignored. The ad for the nanny that Maria swears she didn't place, the bus that broke down right outside our gates, the storm that brought you to our door, the song that brought you into our lives. You're talking about fate, destiny. Those aren't real things, says the woman who learned a lullaby from my dying wife and found her way to singing it to our daughter 3 years later. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing away tears she hadn't realized she was crying. "I don't know what this is, Zara. I don't know if it's Juliana's last gift or just the universe's twisted idea of a joke. But I know that for the first time in 3 years, this house feels like home again." "Dante, I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I know it's too much, too fast, too complicated. But would you stay? Not just nights. Really stay. Be part of Isabella's life. Of our lives? Your world is dangerous. Yes. You're still grieving your wife. I'll always grieve her. But maybe that doesn't mean I have to die with her. I have my mother to think about. Her treatments. I'll cover everything. The best doctors, private rooms, whatever she needs. I can't be bought. I'm not trying to buy you. I'm trying to remove obstacles. Because I think you feel it too. This pull, this connection that makes no logical sense. She wanted to deny it, but couldn't. From the moment she'd walked into this house, she'd felt it. Like coming home to a place she'd never been. Like finding family in strangers. Like destiny disguised as coincidence. "If I stay," she said carefully, "I stay as myself. Not as a replacement for her. Not as a ghost of what you lost. I'm Zara Washington, not Juliana Rossi. I wouldn't want you to be anyone else," he said. "Juliana brought light to my darkness. You bring peace to my chaos. I didn't know how much I needed that until you showed up. And if your enemies come for me, for Isabella," his expression hardened, "then they'll learn what happens when someone threatens what's mine. The Calabrese family already paid that price. There won't be others." It should have frightened her, the casual way he spoke of violence. But instead, she felt protected, safe in a way she never had before. "Okay," she said simply. "Okay? I'll stay. We'll see where this goes. But slowly. Isabella needs stability, not confusion." "Does this mean you're my new mama?" Isabella asked. "No, sweetheart," Zara said gently. "Your mama will always be your mama. But maybe I can be something else. Something new. Like family?" "Yeah," Dante said, his arm coming around both of them. "Like family." 6 months passed. Zara moved into the guest wing of the house, close enough to be present for Isabella, but maintaining some boundaries as she and Dante navigated their complicated relationship. Her mother's treatment was going well. The expensive therapies Dante funded making a real difference. Her mother had been suspicious at first of this sudden benefactor, but after meeting Dante and Isabella, she'd pulled Zara aside and said, "That man looks at you like you hung the moon, and that little girl needs a mother's love. Don't let fear keep you from happiness." The relationship with Dante evolved slowly, carefully. They were partners in raising Isabella first, learning to work together, to trust each other. But underneath, something else was building. It was the small moments that undid her. The way he'd bring her coffee exactly how she liked it without being asked. How he'd stand behind her while she helped Isabella with homework, close enough that she could feel his warmth. The way his face would transform when he smiled. Really smiled. The darkness lifting, to reveal the man underneath. "You're falling for him," her friend Keisha said during one of their rare lunches. "And don't try to deny it. You get this look when you talk about him. It's complicated. Love always is. But complicated doesn't mean wrong." The first kiss happened on a random Tuesday. Isabella was at school, the house quiet. Zara was in the music room, trying to play one of Juliana's other compositions. She'd been working on it for weeks, wanting to give Dante something, to show that his wife's music wouldn't be forgotten. She didn't hear him come in. Didn't know he was there until she finished, and his arms came around her from behind. That was beautiful, he murmured against her ear. I wanted to surprise you. You surprise me every day. He turned her on the bench. Zara, I need to tell you something. What? I love you. The words were simple, honest, devastating. Not because you brought Juliana's song back, not because you're good for Isabella, not because of fate or destiny or any of that. I love you because you're you, because you challenge me and comfort me and make me want to be better than I am. Dante, I know you might not feel the same way. I know I'm asking a lot, loving a man like me, but I needed you to know. You impossible man, she said, tears streaming down her face. Of course I love you. I've been fighting it for months, telling myself it was too soon, too complicated, too everything. But I love you. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like she'd expected. She'd thought it would be desperate, hungry, full of the passion that seemed to simmer beneath his controlled surface. Instead, it was gentle, reverent, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. Juliana would have approved, he said, when they broke apart. She would have liked that I found someone who sees Isabella the way she did, who sees me as more than my reputation. We don't need her approval, Zara said firmly. This is our story now. He smiled, that rare, real smile that transformed him completely. Our story. I like the sound of that. That night, Zara officially moved from the guest wing to the master suite. Isabella was delighted, having been not so secretly plotting for exactly this outcome for months. Now we're a real family, she announced at dinner. We were always a real family, Dante corrected. Now we're just a complete one. But happiness in Dante's world always came with a price. The attack came 3 weeks later. Zara was walking Isabella home from school. She'd insisted on normal activities, refusing to live in fear. When the black car pulled up, everything happened so fast. Men with guns! Isabella screaming, Zara pushing the child behind her. But before the men could even get out of the car completely, Dante's security descended like avenging angels. The would-be kidnappers didn't stand a chance. Are you hurt? Dante was there suddenly, his hands running over both of them, checking for injuries. We're fine, Zara assured him, though her heart was racing. Your men were perfect. This is my fault, he said, pulling them both close. The Morettis. They're testing me, seeing if I've gone soft. Have you? His smile was sharp, dangerous. No. I've just gotten better at protecting what's mine. They'll learn that tonight. He was gone for 3 days. When he returned, the news was full of stories about a warehouse fire, about the Moretti family suddenly deciding to relocate to Florida. Zara didn't ask for details. That was the deal. She was part of his life, but his business remained separate. It's handled, was all he said. They won't threaten you again. No one will. That night, as they lay in bed with Isabella tucked safely between them, she'd had nightmares since the attempt. Dante said quietly, Marry me. What? Not now. Not tomorrow. But someday. When you're ready. Marry me. Be Isabella's legal mother. Be my wife. That's not a proposal. That's a statement of intent. The proposal will be better, I promise. Roses and champagne and whatever else you want. But I needed you to know where my head is. Where my heart is. This isn't temporary for me, Zara. You're it. You're our forever. Forever is a long time in your world. Then I'll spend every day making sure you never regret it. Isabella stirred between them, mumbling something in her sleep. They both froze, waiting to see if she'd wake, but she just curled closer to Zara and settled again. She doesn't have nightmares when you're here, Dante observed. Neither do you. It was true. The screaming nightmares that had plagued him for 3 years had stopped the night Zara moved into his room. You brought peace to this house of war, he said. You brought music back to the silence. We brought it to each other, she corrected. 1 year after that first night, Zara stood in the garden behind the house, wearing a simple white dress, wildflowers in her hair. It wasn't the grand Mafia wedding everyone expected. It was small, intimate, with only family and the closest of friends. Isabella stood as flower girl, practically vibrating with excitement. She'd been planning this day for months, ever since Dante had let her help pick out the ring. Do you? Zara Washington, take this man to be your husband, the officiant asked. I do. Do you, Dante Rossi, take this woman to be your wife? With everything I am, I do. Then, by the power vested in me. Wait, Isabella interrupted. I want to say something. Everyone laughed as the little girl, now 5 and full of opinions, stepped forward. Mama Juliana, she said, looking up at the sky. Thank you for sending Zara to us. I promise to take good care of Daddy and help Zara learn all the family recipes. And I'll teach my little brother or sister all the songs, both the Ethiopian ones and the Italian ones. Zara's hand went to her stomach, where the tiny life they'd only discovered last week was growing. They'd planned to announce it at the reception, but Isabella had overheard, and keeping secrets wasn't her strong suit. Brother or sister? Dante asked, his eyes wide. Zara nodded, tears streaming down her face. Surprise. He kissed her then, not waiting for the officiant to give permission, and the garden erupted in cheers. That night, as they danced at the reception, Juliana's piano compositions playing softly in the background, Dante whispered, Do you believe in fate now? I believe in love, Zara replied. In all its forms, in all its mysteries. I believe that sometimes people leave us gifts we don't understand until we're ready to receive them. And Juliana's gift wasn't just the song. It was permission. Permission to love again, to be happy again, to build something new without destroying what came before. He spun her around, and for a moment, Zara could swear she smelled that floral perfume that still lingered in the music room. A blessing, perhaps, from the woman whose love had made all of this possible. I love you, Dante said against her lips. My wife, my peace, my unexpected salvation. I love you too, she replied. My husband, my complicated hero, my proof that fate has a sense of humor. As they danced, Isabella ran up and demanded to be included. Dante lifted her with one arm, and they danced as 3, as a family, as proof that love doesn't end with death. It just transforms, finding new voices to carry its song forward. 5 years passed. The Rossi family grew, first with Marco, whose birth had nearly given Dante a heart attack with worry, then with the twins, Lucia and Gabriel. The house that had once echoed with silence now rang with laughter, arguments, and yes, music. Zara had finished her nursing degree but chose to work part-time at a clinic in the neighborhood, using her position to help those who couldn't normally afford health care. Dante had initially worried about her safety, but she'd reminded him that she'd survived growing up in Southside Chicago and falling in love with the Mafia. Everything else was easy by comparison. Isabella, now 10, was a force of nature. She had her mother's musical gift and her father's strategic mind, a combination that made her formidable, even at her young age. She spoke 3 languages fluently: English, Italian, and Amharic, which Zara had taught all the children. Tell us the story, Marco demanded one evening. All 4 children piled on the couch. Which story? Zara asked, though she knew. The song story, the twins chorused. It had become family legend, how Mama Zara had come to them knowing a song only their angel mother had known, how fate had woven their families together in the most impossible way. Well, Dante began, pulling Zara close. Once upon a time, there was a very sad man and a very sad little girl, and a woman who knew a magic song, Isabella added. It wasn't magic, Zara corrected gently. It was love. Love is the strongest force in the universe. It can transcend time, space, even death. Is that why Angel Mama sent you? Lucia asked. Maybe, Zara said. Or maybe we found each other because we were meant to. Some things don't need explanation. They just need acceptance. Like how Papa is scary to everyone else but not to us, Gabriel asked. Dante laughed, ruffling his son's hair. Exactly like that. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Dante and Zara stood in the music room. It had been transformed over the years, filled with instruments from around the world, a blend of Italian and Ethiopian culture that represented their blended family. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't answered that ad? Dante asked. No, Zara said simply, because I believe we would have found each other anyway. Some connections are too strong to be denied. Even death couldn't stop it, he agreed, his arms coming around her. From upstairs, They heard Isabella's voice, singing to Marco, who must have had a bad dream. The melody was the Italian lullaby, but she'd added verses of her own, mixing in Amharic words Zara had taught her. She's creating her own version, Zara observed. Juliana would love that, Dante said. She always said music should evolve, grow, become something new with each generation. Do you still miss her? Every day. But it's different now. It's grateful missing. Grateful for what we had, for what she gave me, for the path that led to you. Zara turned in his arms. I need to tell you something. What? I'm pregnant again. His eyes widened. But the doctor said after the twins. I know. But apparently, our family isn't done surprising us. He kissed her deeply, then dropped to his knees, pressing his lips to her stomach. Hello. Little surprise. You're already loved, already wanted, already part of our crazy, complicated, beautiful family. What if it's another set of twins? He looked up at her, grinning. Then we'll need a bigger house. Or maybe just more patience. Good thing you have enough for both of us. They stood there in the music room, surrounded by the ghosts of the past and the promises of the future, proof that love takes many forms, tells many stories, and sometimes, just sometimes, uses the most unexpected messengers to deliver its gifts. That night, as she had every night for 6 years, Zara hummed the Italian lullaby as she checked on each sleeping child. But now it didn't feel like carrying someone else's song. It felt like carrying forward a legacy, one note at a time, one child at a time, one impossible love story at a time. Because that's what their story was. Impossible and inevitable, tragic and beautiful. An ending that became a beginning. A lullaby that crossed the boundary between life and death to bring together two broken families and make them whole. As she climbed into bed beside Dante, he pulled her close and whispered, Thank you. For what? For singing her song. For becoming our song. For teaching me that love doesn't end. It just changes form. Always, she promised. And in that word was everything. The past they honored, the present they treasured, and the future they were building together. One impossible, beautiful day at a time. Epilogue, 10 years later. The invitation arrived on cream-colored paper, the calligraphy so perfect it looked printed rather than handwritten. But Zara recognized Isabella's handiwork. The girl had inherited her birth mother's artistic talents, along with her father's iron will. You are cordially invited to the debut piano performance of Isabella Giuliana Rossi at Carnegie Hall, New York City. Dante found her crying in the kitchen. The invitation clutched to her chest. Happy tears, I hope? He asked, though he knew the answer. She did it, Zara whispered. She actually did it. At 16, Isabella had already accomplished more than most musicians did in a lifetime. She'd been accepted to Juilliard's pre-college program, won 3 international competitions, and now, Carnegie Hall. But more importantly, she'd found a way to blend all parts of her heritage into something uniquely hers. Italian opera, Ethiopian folk melodies, American jazz, all woven together in compositions that made critics weep. She wants to perform the lullaby, Dante said quietly. The full orchestral version she's been working on. Zara's breath caught. Isabella had been secretly working on an arrangement of her mother's lullaby for 2 years, transforming the simple melody into a full symphony. She'd incorporated elements from Zara's grandmother's songs, creating something that honored both the mother who gave her life and the mother who gave her love. Are you ready for that? To hear it performed publicly? Dante pulled her close. Juliana's music deserves to be heard, and Isabella deserves to share it with the world. It's not our secret to keep anymore. The performance was scheduled for December 15th, exactly 13 years after Juliana's death. It wasn't a coincidence. Isabella had insisted on that date, saying it was time to transform a day of mourning into a day of celebration. The entire Rossi clan would be there. Marco, now 12, more interested in science than music but fiercely protective of his older sister. The twins, Lucia and Gabriel, 8 years old and already showing signs of their father's strategic thinking and their mother's compassion, and little Sophia, their surprise baby, just turned 5 and convinced her biggest sister was the most magical person in the world. Even Zara's mother would attend, her cancer in remission for 3 years now. She'd become a grandmother to all the Rossi children, teaching them to cook Ethiopian food and telling them stories of their heritage. Mama Z, Isabella said that evening at dinner, using the name she'd adopted when she was 7. I need to ask you something. Anything, sweetheart. I want to tell the real story. At Carnegie Hall. About how you came to us. About the song. About everything. I've written a piece to narrate between the musical movements. Would that be okay? Zara looked at Dante, who nodded slightly. They'd kept the full story private, letting the world think Zara was simply a nanny who'd fallen in love with her employer. But Isabella was right. The truth was so much more powerful. Your story to tell, Zara said. We trust your judgment. Isabella beamed, then turned serious. I've been having dreams lately. About Mama Juliana. The table went quiet. Isabella rarely spoke of these dreams. But when she did, they always seemed to carry weight. She's happy, Isabella continued. She told me to tell you both that every choice, every moment of pain, it all led to this. To our family. She said love isn't a line, it's a circle. No beginning, no end, just continuous connection. Marco rolled his eyes. Bells, you're getting weird again. Marco! Zara scolded, but Isabella laughed. It's okay. I know how it sounds, but sometimes when I'm playing, I feel her. Both of them. Like Mama Juliana and Grandma Abeba are sitting on either side of me, guiding my day, hands. Abeba was Zara's grandmother, who had passed 2 years ago. She'd lived long enough to see all 5 of her great-grandchildren, to teach them her songs, to weave her stories into the tapestry of the Rossi family history. I feel them too sometimes. Little Sophia piped up. They smell like flowers and coffee. Out of the mouths of babes, Dante murmured. The weeks leading up to the performance were a whirlwind. Media outlets had gotten wind that Isabella Rossi, the prodigy daughter of the notorious Dante Rossi, would be performing original compositions based on her family's story. The fact that it involved her deceased mother and her stepmother who'd raised her made it irresistible to journalists. They're calling it a modern fairy tale, Dante said, scrolling through his phone with disgust. If they only knew the true story. They will, Isabella said confidently. I've made sure of it. She'd refused all interviews before the performance, saying the music would speak for itself. But she'd prepared something special for the night. A multimedia presentation that would accompany the performance, featuring photos and recordings that had never been shared publicly. The night of the performance, Carnegie Hall was packed. The Rossi family had bought out an entire box, but the rest of the seats were filled with music lovers, critics, and curious observers drawn by the unusual story. Zara stood in Isabella's dressing room, helping her with the final touches. The teenager wore a stunning gown that blended Italian and Ethiopian design elements, a visual representation of her dual heritage. Are you nervous? Zara asked. Terrified, Isabella admitted, but also ready. This story needs to be told. The world needs to know that families come in all forms, that love doesn't follow rules, that sometimes the most beautiful things grow from the deepest pain. Your mother would be so proud. Both of them would. Isabella turned and hugged Zara fiercely. You are my mother. You're the one who stayed, who raised me, who showed me that strength comes in many forms. Juliana gave me life, but you gave me love when I needed it most. There wasn't a dry eye in the Rossi box when Isabella walked onto the stage. She moved with a confidence that belied her 16 years, settling at the piano with the grace she'd inherited from both her mothers. Good evening, she said into the microphone. Tonight, I want to share with you a story about love, loss, and the impossible connections that bind us. It's a story about 2 mothers, 1 father, and the lullaby that brought them all together. The lights dimmed, and on the screen behind her, a photo appeared. Juliana Rossi, radiant and alive, holding baby Isabella. My mother, Juliana, died when I was barely a year old, Isabella began. She left behind a husband drowning in grief, a baby who would never remember her face, and a song that only we knew. Her fingers found the keys, and the simple melody of the lullaby filled the hall. But then she stopped, and another photo appeared. Zara on her first night at the Rossi house, holding a crying Isabella. 3 years after my mother's death, a woman appeared at our door. She was a stranger, a nursing student answering an ad for a nanny position, but when she sang to me, she knew my mother's song. The secret one, the impossible one. Gasps rippled through the audience. You see, Isabella continued, my mother didn't die alone. In her final moments in a Chicago emergency room, she taught her precious lullaby to a young nursing student who held her hand. She made that student promise that if she ever met her Stella Stellina, her little star, she would sing her the song. The screen showed a photo of Zara from her nursing school days, young and serious in her scrubs. That student was Zara Washington, who would become Zara Rossi, who would become my Mama Z, the woman who fate brought to our door with my dead mother's song on her lips, and love in her heart for a broken family she'd never met. Isabella began to play again, but now the simple lullaby was transforming. Ethiopian rhythms weaving through Italian melodies, jazz progressions, adding complexity to the classical structure. This is our story, she said as she played. A story of how death can lead to life, how strangers can become family, how love takes forms we never expect. My mother Juliana's last act was to pass her love to a stranger, trusting that somehow that love would find its way home. And it did. The music swelled, and the screen filled with photos of the Rossi family through the years. Dante and Zara's wedding, the births of all the children, holiday celebrations, ordinary moments made extraordinary by the joy in them. My father says that my mother Juliana brought light to his darkness, but Mama Z brought peace to his chaos. One taught him to love, the other taught him to live, and both of them taught me that there's no one right way to build a family. The final movement of the piece was triumphant, all the musical themes coming together in a celebration of life and love and impossible connections. As the last note rang out, the audience erupted. The standing ovation lasted 10 minutes. But Isabella wasn't done. As the applause finally died down, she spoke again. I want to thank my family for allowing me to share our story. My father, Dante Rossi, who people fear but who I know as the man who checks on me 3 times every night, who never missed a recital, who learned to braid hair because I needed him to. In the box, Dante wiped his eyes, not caring who saw. My Mama Z, who stepped into an impossible situation with grace and love, who honored my mother's memory while building her own legacy, who showed me that strength and softness can coexist. Zara was openly sobbing now, held tight in Dante's arms. My siblings, Marco, Lucia, Gabriel, and Sophia, who remind me daily that love multiplies rather than divides. The 4 younger Rossi children waved enthusiastically from the box, drawing laughter from the audience. And finally, to my mother Juliana, whose music lives on not just in these notes but in the family that rose from the ashes of loss. Mama, your lullaby found its way home. Your Stella Stellina is shining bright, and the love you sent with a stranger has grown into something beautiful beyond imagination. Isabella stood and bowed, and Carnegie Hall shook with applause. Later, at the reception, critics and admirers swarmed Isabella, but she eventually made her way back to her family. How did I do? She asked, suddenly looking like the teenager she was. You told our truth, Dante said, pulling her close. Beautifully, perfectly, courageously. Mama Juliana would have loved it, Marco added, surprising everyone with his emotional maturity. She did love it, Sophia said, with the certainty of a 5-year-old. She was there. I saw her. She was sitting in the empty seat next to us, smiling. No one corrected her. In a family built on impossible connections, who were they to say what was real and what wasn't? As they prepared to leave, a woman approached Zara. She was elderly, walking with a cane, but her eyes were sharp and knowing. Excuse me, she said. Are you Zara Rossi? Yes. I was working in the ER the night Juliana Rossi died. I remember you. You stayed with her for hours, even after your shift ended. I always wondered what happened to the young student who showed such compassion that night. Zara's breath caught. Dr. Martinez? The older woman smiled. Retired now, but I had to come tonight when I heard the story. I wanted you to know something. In all my years of emergency medicine, I never saw anyone comfort a dying patient the way you did. It was like you were meant to be there, like she was waiting for you specifically. I've thought about that night so many times, Zara said softly. She told me something, Dr. Martinez continued. Right before she taught you that song, she said, "This one will save them." She doesn't know it yet, but she's going to save my family. I thought it was the morphine talking, but she looked at the Rossi family, gathered around Zara. She was right, wasn't she? We saved each other, Zara said, feeling Dante's arm come around her waist. Dr. Martinez smiled. That's how the best families work. As they drove home, the car full of exhausted but exhilarated children, Dante took Zara's hand. No regrets? He asked, as he did sometimes when the weight of their unusual story felt heavy. Never, she replied, as she always did. Every strange turn, every impossible moment led us here, led us to this. Even the danger, the complications, the weight of being married to who I am. You're not just what you do, Dante. You're who you love, how you love, the family you've built and protected. That's the man I married. And the woman I married walked into my life carrying my dead wife's lullaby and somehow made that the least remarkable thing about her. From the back seat, Isabella spoke up, her voice drowsy. The circle of love, remember? No beginning, no end. Getting philosophical on us, Bells? Marco teased. Just remembering what matters, she replied. As they pulled into the estate, the house that had once echoed with grief, now blazing with light and warmth, Zara felt that familiar sense of coming home. Not just to a place, but to a purpose, to a family that shouldn't exist but did, to a love story that defied all logic. That night, as she tucked each child into bed, Zara hummed the lullaby, but it wasn't Juliana's anymore, or hers, or even Isabella's. It belonged to all of them, a thread connecting past to present to future, a reminder that love finds a way, even when that way seems impossible. Dante found her later in the music room, playing the simple melody on the piano Isabella had taught her to use. She was magnificent tonight, he said. She was herself. That's all she needed to be. He sat beside her on the bench, adding harmony to her melody, and together they played the song that had brought them together. Outside, snow began to fall, blanketing Chicago in white, making everything clean and new. I love you, Dante said suddenly. I don't say it enough. You say it every day. In how you protect us, provide for us, love us with everything you have. And you? How do you say it? By staying, Zara said simply. Every day, through everything, I stay. That's my promise, my vow, my love song. They played until the early hours of morning, two people who shouldn't have found each other creating harmony from what should have been discord. And somewhere, in whatever place souls go when they leave this world, Juliana Rossi smiled, knowing her final gift had been received, cherished, and transformed into something even more beautiful than she could have imagined. The lullaby lived on, carried by new voices, teaching new generations that love is the only magic that's real, the only force that can transcend death, and the only inheritance that truly matters. This was their story. Impossible and inevitable, tragic and triumphant, a lullaby that became a symphony, a tragedy that became a love story, a ending that became a beginning that would echo through generations. 5 years after Carnegie Hall, the letter arrived on a Tuesday, delivered by a courier who looked nervous even approaching the Rossi estate. Zara signed for it, noting the official seal of the Italian government on the envelope. What is it? Dante asked, looking up from his morning coffee. She opened it carefully, her Italian now fluent enough to read the formal language. As her eyes scanned the page, her hand went to her mouth. They want to honor Juliana, she whispered. The Italian Cultural Ministry wants to create a music scholarship in her name. They've heard about Isabella's performances, about the story. They want our permission to access her unpublished compositions. Dante set down his coffee cup with a click that echoed in the sudden silence. Even the children, now ranging from 10 to 21, seemed to sense the weight of the moment. They want to dig into our past, Marco said, now 17, and protective of the family's privacy. They want to honor your mother, Zara corrected gently. Your first mother's musical legacy. Isabella, home from Juilliard for spring break, reached for the letter. At 21, she'd become a sensation in the classical music world, but she'd also become fiercely protective of her family's story, refusing to let it be sensationalized. This is different, she said after reading. They're not looking for scandal or drama. They want to preserve her music, make it available to students who couldn't otherwise afford training. It's what she would have wanted. How do you know what she would have wanted? Lucia asked. The 13-year-old twins were in their questioning phase, challenging everything and everyone. Because, Isabella said simply, she sent Mama Z to us. A woman who couldn't afford her own education, who was struggling to pay for her mother's care. She would understand the importance of helping others in similar situations. Dante stood and walked to the window, his back to his family. They all recognized the stance. He was wrestling with the past, with the parts of Juliana's life and death that still haunted him. There would be questions, he said finally, about how she died, about our life, about things that are better left buried, or things that deserve to see light, Zara said softly, moving to stand beside him. Dante, we've spent years building something beautiful from tragedy. Maybe it's time to let Juliana's music live beyond these walls. The authorities can't touch you now. You know that. The legitimate businesses, the connections you've cultivated, the protection you've arranged. You're untouchable in ways that matter. It was true. Over the years, Dante had systematically legitimized much of his empire, transforming from pure crime boss to something more complex, a businessman who operated in gray areas but kept his family safely in the light. It had been Zara's influence, her quiet insistence that their children deserve lives without constantly looking over their shoulders. I want to go to Italy, Isabella announced suddenly, to see where she grew up, where her music was born. I want to understand the parts of her I never knew. It's dangerous, Dante said automatically. Everything about our lives has been dangerous, Marco pointed out. But we're still here, still strong. Maybe it's time to stop running from the past and start embracing it. Sophia, now 10 and wise beyond her years, climbed into Dante's lap. Daddy, if we go to Italy, will we meet Mama Juliana's family? The question hung in the air. Juliana's family had cut ties when she married Dante, unable to accept their daughter's choice to love a man from his world. They'd never met Isabella or acknowledged the other children. I don't know, Piccola, Dante said honestly. We should try, Zara said. They're your heritage too, Isabella. Your grandparents, aunts, uncles. They should know the woman you've become. The decision to go to Italy changed everything. As they prepared for the trip, boxes of Juliana's things that had been locked away were finally opened. Compositions, letters, photographs. A life interrupted but not erased. Look at this, Isabella breathed, holding up a notebook. She was writing an opera. About a woman who loved a dangerous man, who chose love over safety. Art imitating life, Dante murmured, reading over her shoulder. Or life-inspiring art, Zara suggested. She was processing her choices through music. The notebook was filled with notations, lyrics in Italian and English, themes of love and danger and choice threading through every page. But what caught Zara's attention was a letter tucked into the back, addressed to my daughter's future mother. Dante, she said, her voice shaking. Look at this. He took the letter, his face paling as he read his wife's handwriting. To the woman who will raise my Isabella. I don't know who you are or when you'll find this, but I know you exist. I've dreamed of you. Kind eyes, a warm smile, hands that will hold my daughter when I cannot. I know this because I know my husband. He will grieve, perhaps too long, but eventually his heart will open again. And when it does, it will choose someone worthy of the love I'm leaving behind. Please know that you have my blessing, my gratitude, and my love. You are not replacing me. You are continuing what I started. You are giving my daughter what I cannot. Presence, guidance, daily love. Tell her about me, but not too much. Let her form her own memories, her own understanding. Love her father through his difficult moments. He will test you, push you away, but underneath the armor is a heart that loves with frightening intensity. And if, by some miracle, you're reading this with him beside you, know that this is exactly what I prayed for in my final moments, that my family would be whole again, even if I couldn't be part of that wholeness. The lullaby I sang to Isabella is my gift to you both. Use it to comfort her, to remind her that love transcends absence. Thank you for choosing them. Thank you for staying. With love and gratitude, Juliana Zara was sobbing by the time she finished reading. Even Dante's eyes were wet. She knew, Isabella said wonderingly. Somehow she knew about you. Or she just hoped, Marco suggested. But even his teenage skepticism couldn't diminish the power of the letter. "She loved us enough to let us go," Dante said quietly. "To want us to find happiness again." The trip to Italy became a pilgrimage of sorts. They visited the small town where Juliana grew up, the church where she'd sung as a child, the conservatory where she'd studied. At each place, Isabella played her mother's compositions, breathing new life into melodies that had been silent for too long. It was at the conservatory that they encountered Juliana's mother, Sofia Benedetti. She was in her 70s now, still elegant but worn by years of grief and regret. She stood in the back of the recital hall, listening to Isabella play. When the performance ended, Isabella walked directly to her grandmother. "Nonna Sofia?" The older woman's composure cracked. "You have her hands, her way of touching the keys like they're precious. But I have something else too." Isabella gestured to Zara. "I have a mother who honored her memory while giving me my own life." Sofia looked at Zara with eyes that held too much history. "You're the one who knew her song. She taught it to me as she died," Zara said simply. "And I taught it to Isabella. I heard about you. The impossible story. I didn't believe it." "Believing in impossible things seems to run in the family," Dante said, stepping forward. Sofia flinched at his presence, old prejudices warring with the evidence of her eyes. "This family, complete and loving despite everything. I was wrong," she said finally, the words seemingly torn from her. "I let pride and fear rob me of knowing my granddaughter, of seeing what my daughter's love became. It became us," Sofia said, tugging on Sofia's hand. "We're what their love became. All of us." The reconciliation wasn't immediate or easy. There were years of hurt to overcome, prejudices to confront, forgiveness to earn and grant. But gradually, the Italian side of the family began to blend with the life the Rossis had built in Chicago. The music scholarship was established with full access to Juliana's work. Isabella performed at the launch event, playing her mother's compositions alongside her own, showing how music evolved while honoring its roots. "My mother wrote music about love and danger," Isabella told the audience. "About choosing the difficult path because it led to something precious. She paid the ultimate price for her choices, but those choices gave life to me, to my siblings, to the family that rose from loss." The program was a massive success, funding education for dozens of students who might otherwise never have access to formal training. Many of them were from backgrounds like Zara's, first-generation Americans, children of immigrants, those who carried music in their bones but lacked the means to develop it. "She would have loved this," Dante said, watching the first scholarship recipients perform. "She does love it," Zara corrected. "Love like hers doesn't die. It just transforms, finds new expressions, new voices." Back in Chicago, life continued its beautiful, chaotic rhythm. Marco went to MIT, choosing science over the family business. The twins developed their own paths. Lucia toward law, Gabriel toward medicine. Sofia showed signs of Isabella's musical gifts, but also Zara's healing nature, saying she wanted to be a music therapist. "I want to help sad people find their songs again," she explained. It was a perfect description of what Zara had done for their family years ago. One evening, as they all gathered for Sunday dinner, a tradition that everyone maintained regardless of busy schedules, Isabella made an announcement. "I've been offered a position with the Metropolitan Opera, youngest principal pianist in their history." The table erupted in congratulations, but Isabella held up her hand. "But I've also been offered something else. The chance to establish a music program in Southside Chicago, where Mama Z grew up, to bring what we've built to kids who need it most." "You can do both," Dante said immediately. "We'll make it work." "Actually," Isabella said, smiling, "I was hoping we all could make it work. Together." She outlined her vision, a community center that combined music education with the healthcare clinic Zara had helped establish, with tutoring programs Marco could oversee during MIT breaks, with legal aid Lucia could contribute to, with medical services Gabriel could support. "A family legacy," she said. "Not of crime or even of music alone, but of transformation, of taking something broken and making it beautiful." "The Juliana and Zara Rossi Center for Arts and Healing," Sofia suggested. "Both mothers," Gabriel agreed. "Both parts of our story." Dante looked at Zara, seeing his own thoughts reflected in her eyes. This was what they'd built. Not just a family, but a force for healing, for hope. Yes, they said together. The center opened 2 years later. At the dedication, Isabella played the lullaby that started everything. But now it was accompanied by a full orchestra of scholarship recipients, young voices from every corner of Chicago joining in harmony. Zara stood with Dante, their children around them, Sophia Benedetti on one side and Zara's mother on the other, and felt the circle complete itself. "Do you ever wonder," Dante whispered, "what would have happened if you hadn't answered that ad?" "Never," Zara replied, "because this was always going to happen. We were always going to find each other. The lullaby was just fate's way of making sure we couldn't miss the connection." From the stage, Isabella caught their eyes and smiled. Behind her, almost translucent in the stage lights, some swore they saw another figure, a woman with Isabella's features but lighter coloring, her hands moving in sync with her daughter's on invisible keys. "Mama Juliana's here," Sophia whispered, and no one disagreed. The music swelled, hundreds of voices joining in the lullaby that had traveled from a dying woman's lips to a stranger's memory. From a stranger's voice to a grieving child's ears, from a child's heart to the world. This was their legacy. Not money or power or even music alone, but the proof that love transcends every boundary, that families are built from choice as much as blood, and that sometimes the most beautiful symphonies arise from the deepest grief. As the final notes rang out, Zara felt a whisper of that familiar perfume, felt a presence that might have been memory or might have been more. "Thank you," the wind seemed to say, "for all of it, for everything." "Thank you," Zara whispered back, "for trusting me with your treasure." The audience erupted in applause, but the Rossi family stood in their own bubble of perfect understanding. They were complete, not despite their history of loss and impossible connections, but because of it. And somewhere in the music that filled the hall, in the lullaby that had started it all, Juliana's voice joined the chorus. Her song finally, fully, completely home. The circle of love, unbroken and eternal, continuing its endless, beautiful rotation. And it all started with a song that only a dead woman knew, sung by a stranger who became family, in a house where grief became joy, where the impossible became everyday magic, where love proved itself stronger than death, and where a lullaby became the foundation for a legacy that would inspire generations. This is their story. Impossible, inevitable, true.